Chicago because they look in Chicago for talent. And I mean, Chicago's resume in terms of like talent is insane.
So welcome to another episode of Mike Talk. I am your host. Today's guest has such an impressive resume I had to bring to you guys, man. And he's got a heart for the city of Chicago because he's from here, right? He's going to give us his amazing story that he's working on, and it's going to be released this summer. So he's done so much work. He's a big Bears fan. He's a big Cub fan. And without further ado, I just want to introduce a friend of mine, man, who I've been actually just watching a lot of his work, and it just hit me like, wait a minute. This is from one of my favorite mini docs. Without further ado, Matt Liston. Nice to meet you, Matt. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mike Talk.
It's great to be here, Mike.
Man,
I'm thrilled to be doing it.
How?
Any chance to talk Cubbies is a good day, so I'll take it.
And I just noticed your hat, and for some reason I was like, let me put my hat on the side just in case I need it, and I needed it as soon as I jumped on.
You always have to have one close.
Absolutely. Matt, so what have you been up to? I mean, for a sports fanatic myself, born and raised in Wrigleyville, Cub fan, Bear fan, Bull fan, Hawk fan. I mean, shoot, I rooted for the Chicago Sting, back in the day.
Oh, beautiful.
To see your work come to life, man, and especially with one of my favorite mini docs, which is that chasing October, and the world got to experience our pain.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the Chasing October was interesting for me because it was my first independent film. It literally I put my life savings into that thing and kind of created this hybrid of documentary meets scripted. So I was calling it a docu-comedy. But yeah, I wanted to kind of celebrate what it was like to be a Cubs fan and a diehard Cubs fan pre-World Series. And, that was such a joy and such a moment in time that even in the media landscape we're in now, you couldn't do it. It wouldn't, because of many reasons, including, MLB rights and everything else. But with the technology, like I would have been doing it with this instead of borrowing all these cameras and everything else.
Especially you, man. You're so gifted at what you do. Matt, take me back a little bit. Are you from Illinois? Were you born and raised here? Because I know you live out in LA. You're doing big things with different networks, but I see you a diehard Chicago fan from the very beginning.
That's right. Yeah. I grew up in Chicago Heights. I should have been a White Sox fan because I ended up going to so many.
I was going to say that's far south there.
That's right. I went to many more White Sox games in my early days before Wrigley Field. However, this is no joke. I remember my first visit to Wrigley Field. I remember watching Bill Buckner warm up, and he was actually warming up in right field. He played first base, but he was doing his sprints. But I just remember seeing how green everything was when I got up there. It was like a dream. And to be honest, I was pretty hooked at that point. I had one grandfather who was diehard Sox, one that was diehard Cubs. The one who was diehard Cub fan taught me how to play baseball, the game of baseball. So after seeing Wrigley Field and with my grandfather, I was definitely, head over heels for the Cubs, and that passion. Not only does it remain today on the same crazy level it was before, but I've passed it on to my own kids.
I mean, for people that just don't know, I mean, you have an impressive resume, bro. Honestly, man, you've done some great work. I mean, and the upcoming work that I want to touch on, not now, because man, that is, gave me the chills when I saw what you were working on right now and you're going to release. But before I go there, what gave you the love? Did you go to school for this? Did you because I grew up just wishing that I was just a movie director and a writer and stuff like that. What got you into it?
Yeah, well, it's going to sound strange, but it was actually, I don't know. I was in grade school and I saw the movie oh my gosh, why, Michael Moore's Roger and Me. I saw Roger and Me and was so mesmerized by the documentary. That was my first documentary I'd ever saw, and I loved it. And you
Hmm.
can see influences of that heavy in Chasing October, heavy. So it stuck with me that long, and so I always knew I wanted to do something like that. But then I also knew I wanted to do something on the scripted side, and so then I actually went to Ball State in Indiana, and I went for this. I went for filmmaking and entertainment, and that's where Dave Letterman went. And I created my own show there called Man on the Street because I didn't like what was
Ooh,
offered. To be honest with you, what was existing. So I just did a thing
love
where
that.
I'm on the street doing interviews and such, and ended up being able to pull some pretty big names. Now this is going to date me, and I don't care, but it's like at that time, it's like Dave Matthews, Hootie and the Blowfish are
Oh,
huge.
dude,
Um,
that's
Gin
sick.
Blossom, Gin Blossoms,
Hell
and I
yeah.
got them all on my show, my cable access
What?
show. What happened with that cable access show is it then went to other universities. People used
Oh,
it again. This is old school, so there's none of
that's
this going on. But people were putting them on other campuses on their student thing because it was geared to students. And actually, from that project, I ended up winning the David Letterman scholarship, and then David Letterman came on my show, which was huge at the time because he
what?
didn't do anything like that. And so when I was in college, I knew like I wanted to come out to Los Angeles, and I was fortunate to get some pretty cool internships before I graduated, and I worked on the show Friends, and then went to Seinfeld, and Seinfeld was cool because it started off as an internship but led to a full time job. So, and then I always
So
thought I was going back to Chicago, but I landed that, and I was like, all right, I'm here. I'm here in
yeah,
LA. So
that was my next question was LA in the books? Like, or does LA really necessarily have to be in the books, Matt, for people?
well, now it doesn't need to be. But then it needed to be. I think you had to be in
Mm,
LA or New York. You can maybe get away with Chicago. Maybe. Tough.
yeah.
That's tough. It's funny because I even talked to when I was on the show Seinfeld. The really cool thing about that is I got access to a lot of talented actors and comedians, and quite a few from Chicago. And the advice was kind of like the same. They're like, do this, soak all this up, and then maybe go
Mm,
back to Chicago and kind of fine tune your craft, whether you want to be in front of the camera or behind it,
mm,
and get some heat in Chicago because they look in Chicago for talent. And I mean, you can Chicago's resume in terms of like talent is insane.
yeah,
But yeah,
that's
to
true.
be honest, I was blessed, and I just I was able to get a
Yeah,
job after job, and I just never went back. But my plan
yeah.
was to go back.
Your
My plan
plan
was to
was to
go
go back.
back.
How often do you come back?
Well, all the time. I'm going to be back in a few weeks. I'm going to be celebrating my birthday, and it's a big one. And I've got I got my wife and my kids. We're all coming out and going to celebrate it Wrigley.
Well, I may have to meet you then, and get one of the stogie or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful. Love it.
take my humidor and
Love
let
it.
you choose one.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Well, I'll tell you,
cool.
yeah, Chicago. I live in LA, but my heart's in Chicago, and it's funny. Just this morning, taking my kids to school, it's something here because obviously we're in Dodger Town,
Oh yeah.
and my son literally every day wears multiple Cubs. So he'll go to school with a Cubs hat every day, and at least a hat, or besides a hat, a jacket, a shirt, something. And one of my daughters actually informed me that his nickname in the school is Mr. Chicago
Let's
because all he wears is
go. I'll
Chicago.
take that all day long.
Yeah, man. So it never leaves you. Our little league team here that I coach my son's little league team. We're the Cubs,
Was
and
that
we just
purposely or?
last night purposely, and then last night we did a thing where we gave all the players from Obvious shirts the Rhino Strong shirts to support Rhino because we love them.
Wow, that's
So
oh
yeah,
yeah. The some of the parents are like, "There's that Cub fan. Get him out of here."
that's right. That's
We
right.
get under their skin, especially when we're beating them. Man,
Oh
but we
man,
we can't buy a win right now, man. Oh,
Yeah,
So
it's been rough, but it's a long season.
yeah, it's a
It's a
long
long season.
season, and
I do think it's like if you're around 500, Memorial Day to All Star break, you're
you're
doing
okay.
okay,
You're
and
okay.
you better turn it on and get what we need though. That's
Yeah, yeah, because it's
really
I think injuries, man, they plague us, and then
yeah.
unfortunate with Hendricks, Professor.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
tough.
bummer. Not a complete surprise, but a bummer.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he has heart. He's got that that cubby blue heart, and he doesn't want to just sit down and just call it quits. So I'm sure he's so professional too. The way he just says, "Man, I'll go to the bullpen. I'll
He
do what I got
is.
to do to make the team
He
better."
is,
So,
man.
but he gave us he gave us that. Oh, as a matter of fact, look what I got right here.
Ah,
Ooh.
love it.
Of course, it's
Love
a
it.
replica.
Yeah, that doesn't
Amazon.
matter, man. You got it. I
1999.
remember I remember, man. Well, that's money well spent. I
Absolutely.
remember back so it would have been 2003 where I had Justin's Jewelry mock up the World Series ring in Chasing October, and I just remember people thought that was crazy at the time, but I just remember Dusty Baker's reaction to it and Ernie Banks's reaction to it. They were like, "Whoa!" Like to see a visual,
That is so
what it could actually look like. I think really took them aback.
Matt, I look at a lot of the things that you do, and your storytelling is just so good, man. Especially for men, we resonate to these things, right? Especially athletes and stuff like that. And like the stories that you're writing, do you have like a plethora on the shelf right now of projects that are? I know because we're writers, we're creators, we want to do everything at once, and it's just how
Yeah,
do you gauge the
yeah.
plethora if you do have that?
You know what? It's so crazy because there's a couple things. There's having the idea, executing, and funding the idea, and then having
Mm,
somewhere for it to be shown. So I think at all times, let's use the sports analogy. It's like the minor leagues. It's like you have all these prospects, and you're fortunate if one or two hit. And that's how it is in my business. It's like there's a million ideas, and I even might have gone down the road with them and filmed. But that doesn't mean there's a marketplace for it at that time. And sometimes you have to. Everything needs to
see,
line up at the right time
that's
to
good.
get it done.
And I hear the same word, timing.
It's timing. It
I hear
is.
the same word, and even with the bat swing, right?
So it's like there's a lot of concepts out there that I'm excited about that people are interested in, including some scripted material. Uh, but we'll have to see if the timing's right. Now I had one that I can't go too far down the road explaining it, but like I had a concept that I pitched. I'm not joking, 6 or 7 years ago, and it's baseball related, and it's a script. It'd be a series, but at that time, I got quick kind of nose on it. But now that the way streaming is and
Mm,
viewer consumption
yeah.
of binge watching and everything, now I have interest in it.
Mm,
Again, timing. So it's like, when I was pitching it earlier, they're like, well, where does it kind of fit? And, what are the running times on it? How many episodes? Now it's like, okay, like it can work. It's a flexible idea. It's a bit of a hot idea. It's kind of working in another, sorry to be kind of talking without going into great detail, but
no, it's accessible.
yeah, it's like, it's all timing. It's all timing. I mean, you have to have a good concept. Don't get me wrong, but timing's huge.
Yeah, it's and so right now, because I'm eager to get to this story, but I want people to understand, like, because as a youth mentor, you have the youth with so many talents, and not everyone is athletic, right? And
Right, right.
for me, it's like, sure, I grew up playing little league, and we played in the park, and we played baseball and whatnot. But when you are in a place where the not every youth plays sports. Some are so good at math, right? Some are
Yes.
so
Yeah.
good at social media, and they're just so good at use. Like you just said earlier, like your son is like teaching you how to use
That's right.
some of this
That's right.
technology nowadays. And so how can the youth now, being so having this accessibility to YouTube and all these other channels, um how can they pursue something that like you're doing, right? not necessarily in front of the camera, behind it, because they're so talented behind the camera.
I think it's a great question, and I'm very excited for young people who want to be in this business and storytell and make a living, filming things they're passionate about, because
Mm.
it's all about accessibility. It's like I'm not joking. When I did for instance, the Chasing October, I was borrowing camera gear and
Oh,
trying to get tape stock and all this stuff, trying to get a big Avid bay. I mean, I edited that thing in New York because somebody would give me an edit suite in New York to edit it. I couldn't even do it
yeah,
otherwise. But
yeah,
now, I mean, one of these, you could actually do it. You can do a film, and it doesn't need to be a huge film, but
true.
you can start here, shoot with this, edit with this,
Mm.
and put little stories together. And you don't need a big studio. You don't need a big Avid system to edit it. And it's all about perfecting your craft. So it's all batting practice, right? So it's like
Adding
film a bunch of
practice. That's
stories
right.
on here, edit them in short form, perfect your storytelling. Because at the end of the day, it's how do you tell the story? How do you tell a story that people are going to want to stay and have it, and keep their minds and keep their attention on? It's very hard, especially today. The younger generations want it quick. You need to storytell quick, but you can practice that here, and you can practice it cheaply.
Yeah,
It's not expensive to shoot. Borrow mom or dad's phone, or
yeah,
if you're in high school, maybe you have your own phone,
yeah,
or iPad.
yeah,
So I'm excited.
yeah,
I think we're going to have a lot of amazing. Well, we already do, but I
yeah,
think it's going to continue.
yeah.
A lot of amazing filmmakers, and at early ages too.
And as technology gets better and better and better, that'll create more beasts behind the camera, right? Don't you
Oh,
agree?
without a doubt. I think that the biggest challenge this next generation faces is getting seen, because so much is out there that it's hard to get eyeballs. It just is. So like even with our
Yes.
films and stuff, it's like a lot of people are like, well, it used to just be HBO, then it was HBO and ESPN doing sports docs. Now it's like
Mhm.
every team has their own like film division,
True.
right?
True.
Like athletes have their own social media folks. Like,
True. Some guy following them around all day, you know? Yeah.
yeah, so it's like it's not longer just a novel thing. It's like it's just out there and it's in your face, and like and there's so much. The volume is so much. I mean, think of it back in the day. Somebody would be like, "Hey, did you see this TV show?" "Oh yeah," or "Yeah, I heard about it. What channel is it on?" Now, you might not know the show, and it could
Yeah.
have big actors. You might not know the show. You might not know what it's streaming on. Like somebody could bring it, like, "Oh, it's on Tubi." Like, what's Tubi?
True.
And then you have to do a whole thing. So,
You see some of that content though.
oh yeah, I know. But it's like such. There's so much out there. There's so much out there. So I think that's the biggest challenge young filmmakers have. Right now, it's getting seen, but they
Yeah.
can perfect their craft in a way that didn't exist before.
Now, how cool is it, man? Like how cool is it meeting Hunter Pence? Because man, I love that dude. I've always loved him as a ball player, man. And even
Yeah,
as he's retired, you find him in the booth sometimes. And
yeah.
how cool is he, man? Because he looks super cool.
He's awesome. He's awesome. And that, he helped us out big time. So essentially that was for a piece. I worked with LeBron James, hired me to do a series called Mr. Impossible, where I helped fulfill sports wishes basically. And that one, okay, you know how you were asking me earlier about like all your ideas and what do you do with them? So I had a young lady reach out to me years earlier. She was a Dodger fan, and she said she knew I helped fulfill sports wishes before this series, right? So she just reached out saying, "I'm trying to spread a little bit of my father's ashes at Dodger Stadium because I grew up going to Dodger games," and
Saw
I
that. So
connected with
cool.
it very much because when I was filming Chasing October at Wrigley Field, we saw a man spreading white powder in the stands. And if you see the footage, which is in that episode, I did air it, I blur his face, but he looked like he's up to something no good. And again, this is 20 years ago.
Especially Cup fans, we see anything like that, dude, we're gonna tackle them.
But it was so shady. So we tried to get security. Security wasn't paying us any attention. We asked him, "What are you doing?" And we're filming him in the process. He takes this cup and he throws it at us. It hits like the seats, and a plume of powder goes up. And he goes,
What?
"Those are the ashes of my dead brother." Right? We're like, "Oh my gosh." And then meanwhile, you got the Chicago dad. He hit this family, and you can hear the Chicago dad on the side being like, "Hey, I'm going to kick your ass," stuff like that. He was so mad at this guy. Security then jumps in and this whole thing. "What are you filming?" And I had clearance through the Cubs to be there. And we thought we were doing a public service, to be honest with you. We weren't trying to cause a problem. Anyway,
Of course.
security pulls us aside, and we end up talking to them. And he says to me, and the guy, by the way, I think as of last year, he still works at Wrigley. He goes, "We get this all the time. It's just people want to put ashes on the actual field, not in the stands." So that was at this time, almost 20 years earlier. So when this lady reached out trying to do it at Dodger Stadium, I really wanted to help her. And then I was doing this thing with LeBron James Spring Hill Company. It's called Uninterrupted. And we wanted to see if we could help this lady put ashes at Dodger Stadium. And then when you peel the onion on that, you see how it is a huge thing throughout the world at sports stadiums. And no sports stadium at that time would allow it. Well, in America, they wouldn't allow it because we called every NFL and MLB team. Two teams out of NFL and MLB said they would do it, but they would do it off the record and help out. And but the Dodgers said no. Anyway, this whole thing was fascinating. One of my favorite docs I've ever worked on. But anyway, to cut to it with Hunter Pence was the Dodgers said, "No, we don't want it. We don't even want a little bit." But by the way, after they said they would do it, then they pulled back and said they wouldn't do it. And then all the reasons that they gave proved to be bullshit because Dave Roberts ends up putting his father's ashes in center field afterwards before their World Series. But anyway, I digress. So listen, I didn't want to piss them off to the point where I'm going to have problems getting access to other things. So
Yeah.
I play ball and I'm like, okay. Oh, by the way, a Dodger player told me they would do it. And then we circled back and said we didn't want to get them in trouble. So I reached out to Hunter Pence and said, "Hey, instead of spreading ashes, could we give you a locket with some ashes? They're made, it's like they're little urns basically, and you can wear them." We made it into a necklace, and it shows in this documentary. He wears it and plays right field that night for the Giants with this gentleman, Henry, around his neck. And such a cool moment because he kept on making sure that it was outside so we could see it.
That's so cool.
Dude, he makes a diving catch that game. When he jumps up after the catch, he throws it in. He kind of shows off his thing and goes back to right field. And what was really special about that night, Henry was a Dodger fan. And what was cool about that night is the Dodgers ended up winning the game and clinching the division that night. But still, he got to take right field around Hunter Pence's neck. And
That's
Hunter
amazing
was great.
right there.
Such a good dude. He totally understood. He said, "Listen, I'm wearing Giants, but it's the rivalry's about love and everything." And I thought it was so great. And it got a lot of attention in the media, and I'm glad it did because I think it kind of put a spotlight on what people's needs are and what their fan bases want. And I just think it helped a great deal. And I know it helped this young lady and, finding some peace. And I did give her, obviously, the necklace that he got to wear. So she still has the father and his charm. And
Dude.
Hunter Pence wore it at a game that the Dodgers clinched the division. So that was one of my favorite projects I ever worked on.
I mean, with all the stars you've met, dude, like, sheesh. I mean, I would have been starstruck. I'm sure you got the starstruck. I guess the season of being starstruck out of the way quick. You got to get out of that quick, right? Because you can't be stuck there as a professional.
Well, it's true. And also, though, you do think a lot of times, you have a job to do. Like, you are thinking of it from a work and a content perspective. If you're like interviewing somebody that you admire or been a fan of, which I have done, you're really though thinking like you try not to get too caught up in that moment, right?
True.
You got to think like, oh my
True.
gosh, I gotta like make sure they say this, or like I asked
Yeah.
this question,
This is so cool. This is so cool, Matt. Now, I was going to ask you like what's going on next, but I'm eager to say that I'm so excited for what's coming up next. And this story was huge, and then all of a sudden, I love what you're doing because it disappeared, and
Disappeared. Yeah.
you bring it back to the surface, but not only that. To someone who I feel is just was just like forgotten, man, and this is this new mini doc you got coming up. Tell me a little bit about that,
Yeah.
because it's titled Game Plan, correct?
Game plan. Yeah. Game plan. The Wendell Brown story. Wendell Brown is he, he lives in Detroit, Michigan. He's a football coach. And basically I'll rewind for a second.
Sure.
Would have been 2018, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a November day. We had company over at the house, and then my cell phone buzzed, and then it kept on buzzing. But we had company, so I didn't want to like take it. But eventually, I like look, and I got all these text messages from different people in my life, like, and I could tell something was going on. So I check it out, and I also check my email, and it's the same story coming to me. It's a Yahoo Sports story written by Dan Wetzel, and basically, I knew something big was going on. Now, I will tell you this: the reason the story was sent to me was because one, obviously I do filmmaking, but I also consider myself a sports activist. I try to help people with
Mm-hmm.
inside the world of sports, and I also went to Ball State University. So this was about a Ball State alumni who was in China coaching American football to Chinese youth, and he was wrongly detained in a Chinese prison. Now, if you recall the story of the three UCLA students who who shoplifted when they were over there. UCLA was playing in a basketball tournament in China. Three UCLA students, players, decided to shoplift at some high
Sure.
end department stores, and they were arrested. And then Donald Trump helped get them out. Well, this story, written by Dan Wetzel, says, well, what about Wendell Brown? This guy went to Ball State University, not the prestigious UCLA
Mm,
with all the celebs and everything, but went to Ball State University, was wrongly detained, did nothing wrong, and he's still sitting in prison. So I was like, whoa, I read this story. I'm like, what is going on? And so I started doing a little bit more homework on it to see if I could help in any way. And at that time, it was kind of crazy. All the stories and articles written about him, even in China, they were all over the place. Nothing matched up, nothing made sense. I'm like, what really happened here? Anyway, I got in touch with his family, with his friends, and some other people that were trying to help free him. And through this process, I felt compelled to help in any way I could. And while I knew nothing about the Chinese judicial system, I knew something about filmmaking and social media campaigns that I had done in the past that were successful. So I was like, well, I can try to do something.
mm,
And basically, I filmed the whole process, not knowing if I'd ever do a film or a podcast or anything on it, but just in case.
sure.
Long story short, after 2 years, we were able to get Wendell Brown free. Now, Wendell,
Wow.
just so you know, little backstory here, we could only communicate with him once a month through the US consulate with handwritten letters. So we became friends literally through these written letters. I
Nice.
also became very close with his family at the time. And I knew like I was working hard on a great cause and for a great human.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
Wendell was just helped
Wow.
many people out in the past, you
Sure.
know, was not deserving of the treatment he was getting. I mean, what a nightmare to be an American and then you're wrongly detained in these horrible conditions. So anyway, we eventually were able to, with the help of a whole team of people we call Team Wendell, we're able to get him free and released from prison.
Hmm.
And but as I told Wendell when I finally got to meet him face to face, which was on the airplane flying to Detroit on a red eye, um, you know, it was just so great to meet him and to finally hug him, and you know, and we've become fast friends ever since. But I told him, listen, man, I have filmed this whole process with your family.
Mm.
Every phone call that I've ever done or Zoom trying to gain your release, I have it. If you ever want to make a film, I have the material. It's up to you. If you ever want to do a podcast,
Yeah.
it's up to you.
Yeah.
And and so it took him a while to, obviously you have to get reacclimated to life. I mean, I
Life.
remember being with him in Detroit. He had this huge, beautiful welcome home celebration, and he had this big party at his house, his welcome home. His mom was hosting a party, and I did pull him aside at one point. I said, what are you like? What's
Yeah.
like, where are you at right now? And your adjustment. He goes, the strangest thing, Matt, he goes, it was just, I went into the sink and poured myself a cold glass of water and drank it. And he's like, I hadn't had a cold glass of water in 3 years at that point, because they would
Wow.
only give you hot water there. So this
Wow.
podcast is, when he said he was ready to tell his story, we decided to do an audio podcast. It's very much like a serial. You kind of follow along with it. It's an 8-parter. It is so compelling, though. I mean, I think the audience is going to love it. It's such an inspirational story, because what you're going to hear is about a group of people who live all over the world coming together. I'm one of them,
Yeah.
and so I record every conversation we have and tell it through our point of view and through his family's point of view.
Yeah.
But then you also hear it from his point of view and how he was surviving these conditions and the emotional roller coaster and the spiritual strength he had to endure
Yeah.
that.
I can't
And
imagine.
in the end, we are successful. I don't mind saying that, because
Amen.
it's not all about the ending. It was about the journey. And if you hear how he survives these conditions, and the power of faith in his mind to get
Yeah.
through it,
Yeah.
and then the power and faith the team had to get him released, and all the holes and obstacles we had in place, I'm not joking. I've worked on
Yeah.
many documentaries. I've never worked on a serial podcast until now. This thing's turning out wonderfully. I cannot wait to share
Yeah.
it. It's going to
Yeah.
drop in July, anywhere you can, hear podcasts. So, Apple, Spotify, you name it. It's going to be called Game Plan, the Wendell Brown Story. And I mean, it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever worked on. I mean, it was life changing in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
And that's when you're invested in a story like that, you can't help but to be multiple ways invested. It's not just financial.
Oh,
It's emotional, spiritual, physical, like,
oh,
and it could be
everywhere.
draining. Yeah, it could be draining. Right? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you. A lot of sleepless nights and a lot of prayers,
Amen.
and a lot of flights to Detroit and everywhere
Yeah,
else. And
yeah,
but you know what? It's so crazy. I mean, now he's one of my dear friends. Other people who are on the team, I communicate with almost on a weekly basis. Uh, there's like this family that is kind of grown from it,
sure.
and you don't always get that on projects you work on, but this one's definitely special.
How did you see, like, how did you, I don't know what to say, perceive, right? Because as writers and you're on the outside a lot of times. How did you take, like you said earlier, the prestigious school, right? One of the Ball brothers, right? Like, this is a big name, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then all of a sudden you have someone like Wendell. Well, he was human too, right? He was a ball player too. Like, but
that's right.
like, how does that play out today? Like, do they even talk? Is there, and I'm sure Wendell doesn't have a bitter heart towards people, because it looks like he has no bitterness in his heart whatsoever.
Not at all.
Because man, that brother looks, and he's just so humble. And but yeah, I mean,
So
was there any like adding flame to the fire during the making of this?
no, and we made sure too that we were going to try not to, to keep everything
True.
positive. I mean, it's easy to go negative, and you know what? Like, we were talking on the plane, because we knew when we landed, he was going to have a media
Crazy.
storm
Yeah.
around him, and he did. You did. And we had a conversation. I said, people are going to try to make this a negative story, not a positive one. And he knew it too. Like,
Wow.
this is going to become not the, wonderful story of perseverance and
Yeah.
faith that required him to get home, and
Yeah.
the work that went into getting home. The media would try to turn it into an anti-China story,
True. Oh
right?
yeah.
That's what the narrative, that's going to be the narrative. And you know what? That's what happened. I mean, he got off the plane. Sure, there was some like, oh, you're welcome home, and da da da. But thing, they always tried to
Of
spin it.
course.
And by the way, I've got footage of them trying to spin it. Like, I won't even name the outlets right now, but like,
Trying to change the story. Yeah, man. The
we have
narrative.
it where they set it up with their first few minutes of softball questions, and then they try once, they try twice, they try 3 and 4 and 5 times to try to get him to say something negative about China, which he never does. But I mean,
Sure.
that's where we're at these days, right?
That's the nature of this. The media at times they just kind of throw you a couple fastballs, and then there come them curveballs, and it's like, come on,
Yeah,
man, this
they
is
they
batting
want
practice there. Like,
yeah they want the crazy negative
yeah,
story, but
yeah.
Wendell didn't go for it, and
Good, good for him.
it because it's an inspirational story. It's not an anti-China story. It's an inspiration.
Yeah, and I love that because that's for me when I said I want to talk to Matt and I want to get people like for all my interviews, most of them are inspirational, whether they were
Yeah.
in dark places to where they're at today, man. And I think we got. I mean, I can't wait for that podcast to come out. I can't wait for that story to come out. Now it's going to be on every. Now, are you going to pitch it like to ESPN and like a 30 for 30 or?
No, I mean, right now we're going to keep it as a podcast, and I'll tell you why. The video component of it is very difficult. Like, you got to think visually. Wendell, half the story is Wendell being in prison. We have no footage. We don't even have a still of him in prison.
Can't go to
And
China.
is there a possibility
Yeah.
that it becomes a scripted film? Yeah. Oh, definitely. We're talking about that. But in terms of a documentary, it actually just worked too well as a podcast.
Oh, okay.
It did.
Yeah.
And by the way, even like on my end here,
Yeah.
a lot of my filming are calls like these, like on Zooms and stuff. And,
Sure.
and I recorded those. It's not the most exciting visual component, which is a big part of storytelling, right? So
Sure.
the audio is there. So it just lended itself to podcast so well. And wait till you hear it. Like it'll suck you in because we have some talented people working on this in the sound design and the storytelling. Like,
Love
so
that.
it's good. It's going to play better as a podcast than it would a traditional documentary.
Yeah.
But again, maybe in the future we'll see a feature film, a scripted film with actors playing Wendell and such. So.
Matt, man, I wish I could hang out with you another 30 minutes. We're getting a good one in, and I know you got a long schedule, especially in LA. It's
Next time I'm in Chicago, we'll have to have a beer or one of those cigars.
dude, if you're coming to Chicago for a Cubby game, you let me know ahead of time, which game you're going to, and I'll make sure I sit in the bleachers and we meet up somewhere at Sluggers or Cubby Bear. You know how we do it over there. But Matt, thank you so much. I mean, before you leave, I mean, I'm always trying to inspire our youth, man. What is one thing that you can tell our youth in the city of Chicago, particularly, because this is where I'm invested in. This is where I live, Belmont Craig community, and we're constantly investing in the kids in our communities here in Chicago. If it would be one just nugget for them, man, and doesn't matter what they do, what would that be?
Dude, and it may sound a little cliche, but it's so true. Like, follow your passion. Follow your passion. What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
And just and keep at it. I mean, keep at it. I cannot tell you, like, in terms of my life, where I'm at career-wise, and even family life, like, I definitely knew what I wanted, and I just went for it, right? And, I always put it, like, people talk about luck and lucky breaks. Well, you kind of do create your own. I say you got to kind of push the boat to the river and then let the river take you. But you got to push that boat. That's
good.
You know what I mean? I go back to even like I'll try to make this brief, but like even my move here to Los Angeles. This is no joke. When I was in college, I knew I wanted to come out here and do this for a living. And I remember watching on The Late Show Jerry Seinfeld. Okay. And my girlfriend at the time, we were sitting watching on the couch. I said, I want to work for him. That's who I want to work for. Now, I ended up waiting. I got my internship in LA, but not on his show. But I was doing 2 internships, one on the show Friends, which is on the Warner Brothers lot. And there was another show called The Single Guy that lasted a few seasons on NBC.
I remember.
But here's the thing. The Single Guy one was on the CBS Radford lot, which is where Seinfeld was being filmed. And from their production offices, I could see the production offices of Seinfeld. I could see Jerry's car every morning in his parking spot, and I could see them walking to and from the soundstage. And so for me, I was like, even at that age, I'm like, I just want to be around that. I just want to be around it. And I kid you not, I became friends with some of the folks over there. And then one day I got a call out of the blue saying, hey, do you want to come over? We have a position available for a full-time job.
What?
So I went over there. I wasn't dressed up or anything. Like, and I went over, did the interview. Anyway, I got the job. I say this not to be like boastful, like, look what I did.
Yeah.
I say this because me just knowing I needed to be physically around it to look out and see the soundstage. And then I got to work on it and learn from them.
Yeah.
I mean, every day I was learning from them.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was no bigger show. But I pushed the boat to the water, and then the luck and the timing came. But you have to create it yourself. I was passionate about this business. So I took the leap and went to California. I pushed the boat. I wanted to be around. I wanted to work on Seinfeld. So I got a job that was around Seinfeld. I ended up getting this. You create your own luck and do what you're passionate about doing. Those are two of my biggest pieces of advice I can give.
It makes a lot of sense. And even at my age, like, I have so many ideas. I'm writing, I'm trying to produce like little mini docs, interviewing people from Chicago, and even doing this podcast titled Mike Talk. And then I have a YouTube channel, and I'm a real estate agent. I'm a husband. I'm a youth mentor. It's like, so it's
Dude,
pushing the boat, man. Pushing the boat.
Push the boat, man.
That's so good, bro.
And you're doing it, man. Like, I love that you know, you do your real estate, but you also do this, and you're a mentor, and you're all like, it's amazing.
This is so
and
good.
I don't, you know, it's like people want to put you, by the way, in a box.
Sure.
Don't let them put you in a box.
Oh,
don't let them put you in a box.
Man, that is so good, because I was just talking to somebody not too long ago, and I'm like, people's perception of a real estate agent is a slime ball. It's a car salesman, you know? And it's like, I've never ever felt like I do any kind of, and I don't even feel like my sales are transactional. I feel like they're always relational.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's so crazy, but yeah, you know, it's just going to be me and push the boat, like you said, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're doing wonderful things, man. And so keep it up, and keep these, keep the content coming. I'm a fan.
Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to show you my all-time wish list World Series. Okay, so don't kill me. All right.
Love it.
There you go.
There we go. Oh man, that would be something else.
Rizzo.
That'd be something else.
Would that be awesome?
That would be awesome. And I actually don't think it's far-fetched.
It's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched. Matt, thank you again for hanging out with me, Mike Talk, and in Chicago. And I can't wait to see you here. Blessings to you, your family, your children, and go Cubbies, man. Go Cubbies.
Go Cubbies. My best to your family, man.
Hey, go Cubbies to your kids team too. Let's go.
That's right. We'll talk soon, man.
Take care, Matt. Appreciate it, buddy.
Later.
Bye-bye. Oh man, that was good, guys. You see that? Hanging out with people like Matt Liston, man. I mean, I can interview people like that on my show. I would do it all the time, every day. So guys, I mean, if you guys haven't checked out Matt Liston, look him up. You can find him on his new show and his new podcast coming out called Game Plan. That is the Wendell Brown Story. So you guys got to check that out. So anyway, guys, I'm excited. But anyway, I'm going to get going, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on Mike Talk. Again, if you guys just can find me at Mike the Realtor Chicago, you can find the show under my YouTube channel of Mike the Realtor as well. All right, guys, I got to get going. Stay up. Peace out from Mike Talk and Mike the Realtor Chicago. So long, everybody.